My name is Tyler Reed. I took the graveyard shift at Westwood Mall 6 months after the place closed down. They'd locked the storefronts, cut the power to most of the lights, and put up signs about redevelopment that never came. The city had a humor that the mall would be turned into lofts. Developer came, drank coffee, shook hands, and left. In the meantime, the property managers hired a skeleton crew to keep the building standing, moving the overgrown steps, checking the roof, and doing security rounds at night. I needed the money, and I liked being somewhere that had already died a little. It made my own mistakes feel less loud. The job was simple: patrol the concourse, check the emergency lights, make sure the sprinklers hadn't tripped. Someone from the property company would swing by once a week during daylight, but mainly it was me and the hum of the air handlers. The security office was a small room near the food court. In a drawer, the old manager had left a roster of advice: check cameras at midnight, log any contractors, and never prop the back service doors. It sounded practical until the building started to show us it had other rules. For the first few weeks, everything was ordinary. My shift began at 11 p.m. The lights of the corridor were dim, the mall's glass skylights turned black, and the glass doors in the anchor stores reflected the world back in pale shapes. Some nights I'd sit in the office and watch the cameras. Rows of empty shops, a fountain that leaked, a carousel for kids that had been half paint peeled. Once I had even seen a raccoon move through the food court and took a photo just to prove the night had something alive. Then, about 2 months in, I noticed something on camera 8. It pointed down the east wing where a line of mom and pop shops used to be. At 3:09 am, the feed showed a figure standing in the front of the old shoe store window. In the infrared footage, the outline looked pale and thin. It didn't move for a long while, just stood there and faced the glass like someone looking at the reflection without seeing themselves. I assumed it was a reflection or a trick of light, but it stuck in my head like an unfinished thought. When I went to check the east wing, the corridor was empty. The shoe store window inside was boarded from the inside and had a notorious layer of dust. I ran my gloved hand across the glass and wiped. A fingerprint, clear as palm, showed where someone's hand had been pressed to the inside of the glass. I backed a corner of the dust as a joke, wrote it in the logbook, and figured I'd ask the property manager if anyone had a key to the display case. No one did. The building had been closed for months. The fingerprint didn't make sense. The next day, figure reappeared on camera 8 at 3:09 again, but closer. It stood right under the store sign as if someone giving attention to a spot in the display. Early morning, I'd come in and find a small paper slipped under the security office door. At first, it was blank. Then, the third week, it had a single typed sentence: don't turn your back. I laughed it off at first. Someone was messing with me, I thought. The city has kids, bored and stupid with cameras and phones. I tightened the locks, changed the office code, and set a motion sensor at the east wing entrance. The sensor didn't trigger that night. The paper came the next morning anyway. Then the printed picture arrived. It was a copy made on the old photocopier in the empty management office. Someone must have had access during the day, and it showed the security office through the east wing camera. My chair sat empty. On the time corner, it read 3:09. In the window of the copier image, behind the security chair, there was a dark shape leaning in on the glass. It was low quality and grainy, but the silhouette had a head tilted in a way I recognized. My heart dropped to my shoes. I started leaving the lights on at night. I started placing extra cameras on tripods in the corner. I bought a cheap recorder and left it running on the desk. When I played the tape back in the morning, I heard the normal sound of hatchback motors and a low, distant drip. Between 308 and 310, there was a soft scrape like a shoe on concrete, and then a sound that I could not place, like the drag of a coat or the breath of a corner. No footsteps, no voices. I told the new property manager, a woman named Danny. She looked through the images with skepticism, and then, with an expression that I have learned to read, the face of a person trying to decide if they are brave enough to believe something weird.
We'll send a team to sweep.
She said. Many cats are in there. The maintenance team checked the doors with crawl spaces and came back with their hands empty. The board across the shoe store window had screws from inside. Whoever had been there would have to be inside the locked displays. A week later, I began to get mails. Not from anyone in my company, no sender address that matched the person, no subject lines, just 5 words in plain text. Don't walk past the food court. They arrived at 3:08 a.m. every night. When I tried to trace them through a small office system, the emails went cold. The server metadata said they were sent from within the building. The thought made my skin stinging with goose flesh. Someone inside the mall was sending me messages. I started checking around the office before I walked anywhere. I moved my chair to face the door. The east wing camera saved its footage to a small drive in the security room. I unplugged it and carried the drive to my laptop and made copies. The images didn't skip. They always showed the pale figure standing by the shoe store window at 3:09. Clockwork. I exported the frame and enlarged the area. In the green, the figure looked like an ordinary person. Thin, a jacket, hair falling forward, nothing monstrous, but the eyes, when I squinted, looked like holes that gaped differently than a normal gaze. When the notes escalated from warnings to commands, I felt the sense of trespass change into something else. The morning the message read, "Leave it alone." I hesitated in the food court for a long time. The ghost carousel on the tile looked like an empty mouth. I told myself I was being dramatic, that the emails were a game by some bored kid. But my hands shook enough to make the logbook entries scribbled and hard to read. One night, determined to catch whoever sent the emails, I stayed awake until 3. I sat with my thermos and tucked my jacket over my knees. Around 2:50, a quiet came over the mall that felt like a held breath. The air handlers hummed, and the fountain's small pump churned water like a heart. My camera's clock ticked closer to 3:09. At 3:05, the east wing camera registered motion. Just a tiny blur, and the pale figure stepped into the view. It moved slowly, like someone who had been standing still for a long time. It lifted a hand and pressed that hand to the store glass. In my own camera view, I watched my security chair slump, as if someone had sat in it. The recorder on my desk picked up a tiny sound, maybe the creak of a door or a sigh. I stood up without thinking and walked up to the corridor to confront whoever or whatever was there. The east wing doors were locked, their metal bars cold under my fingers. I could see through the little gap of glass at the top edge of the door. The shoe store display. The shoe store display and the faint smear of dust. When I put my palm to the glass, there was a coolness under my skin like a warning. I heard the faintest noise behind me, paper sliding over linoleum. I turned. A small sheet, warm from the copier, had been slid behind the security office door. The print on it showed me as I had just been standing in front of the shoe store. My back to the camera, the timestamp read 3:09. I felt that cold spread in my chest. I picked up the print and found scrawled on the white margin. Someone had written in quick block letters. You look the same asleep. Panic is a strange and animal thing. It made me move fast and poorly. I began to run the building with fresh fear. I checked every office, the storage room, the bathrooms. I opened the maintenance closet and shone my flashlight up into the ductwork. Dust felt like old snow. Nothing moved. It was as if the building had swallowed whoever had been inside and then shut. On the last day I worked there, the sense of being watched became unbearable. I couldn't sleep, and when I did, my dreams were filled in grainy footage. I dreamt of hands pressed to the glass, the noise of distant breathing, and the photocopy of my sleeping face. At 3:09 on the final night, all the feeds flickered at once in every camera. From the food court to the blocked off cinema, pale figures stood in the frames like a sudden crowd in a photograph. I saw them in the monitor, dozens of them, all turned slightly forward, something I could not see. I don't know why they left. I don't know if they were ever there at all. In the morning, Danny's team came in with flashlight and work vests. They broke open the locked displays, checked the crawl spaces, and upstairs, someone found a small pile of photocopied images under the old service door. There were too many to count. Each one had a timestamp and a sentence. Don't turn your back. Don't walk past the food court. Leave it alone. You look the same asleep. I quit that week. I gave back my keys and my logbook and my little recorder. Danny thanked me politely and looked relieved. She said she would hire a new security company and that redevelopment needed trust and patience. I drove home and never went back. Sometimes I think about those photocopies. Sometimes I haunt the late night corners of the internet where bored people collect small town legends and amateur photos. Once, in a message thread long after, someone posted an image from a security feed with a timestamp and a caption, West Wing 309. Below it, a user called @mall watcher wrote a single line, We keep the building honest. I don't know what that means. I only know the feeling of a building that watches you back. The small sense that your private habits, where you sit, where you fall asleep, are being collected like coins. I know the prick of the paper against my fingers and how the letters of Don't turn your back look like rules set by a librarian who had patience. If you ever find yourself working at a dead place, late at night, an old mall, a shuttered glass station, a motel that remembers other names, trust the small noises. Lock the doors. Keep the lights on. And if a photocopy of you asleep shows up under your door, don't brush it off as a prank. Walk out and don't come back. Some buildings learn how to keep the people who pass through them, and patience is a kind of priesthood.